In chapter 357 of Hunter x Hunter, one of the most infamous men of the Hunter x Hunter world, Hisoka Vs returned from the dead. In the previous chapter, he had lost his fight against Chrollo Lucifer, but in chapter 357, he shocks the entire fandom by coming back to life, by talking to his Nen, and commanding his Nen that when he passes away, to caress and massage his heart and his lungs so that he can once again breathe. And as Machi looms over his body, prepared to stitch up his corpse, Hisoka comes back from the dead, his Nen becoming even stronger. He states to Machi, I guess fighting against someone of Chrollo's caliber while being swarmed by other opponents was a bit more than I could chew. Reality sure knows how to give you a wake-up call. Machi then responds, well, if you've learned your lesson from this, the next time make sure to choose your opponents and the location you fight in more carefully. And then Machi offers to stitch up Hisoka's body, but Hisoka says, no thanks, I'm fine. Using my gum, I'll stop the bleeding, and the bleeding around his mouth proceeds to stop. And with texture surprise, the parts that were destroyed, he then proceeds to completely fix his face. Even my left hand, when he had lost all of his fingers on his left hand, can be molded out of rubber by using the bungee gum, is able to reproduce his fingers. And then with a dash of texture surprise, is able to make his fingers look realistic, matching his body type. Even my right foot, which was completely destroyed, appears to be as good as new. And Machi sees Hisoka restore himself. I see. Then you don't need me, do you? Says Machi. I'll be heading back. Then Hisoka responds to Machi. You've got it backwards. This time I've decided to make sure it's my opponents who can't decide who it is or where they'll have to fight. Machi then says, I see. Whatever makes you happy. Then Hisoka looms behind Machi and makes sure that she understands that he is talking about the spiders, the Phantom Troupe. Then as Machi turns around, Hisoka pins her down with his bungee gum, and then he says to her, would you pass this along to all the spiders for me? That as of now, no matter where they go or whomever they're with, I won't stop until I've killed all of them. And that was Hisoka's final message to Machi, as Hisoka then proceeds to kill Shalmark and Troupe, and only 10 spiders remain. Now, as of this arc, the Phantom Troupe have been running around the Black Whale trying to find Hisoka, and their search continues. They have now enlisted the aid of some of the Mafia families, and until they find Hisoka and kill Hisoka, nothing goes down. Not even any stealing of high-value objects. No, the Phantom Troupe are solely committed right now in killing Hisoka, finding and killing Hisoka. Even Illumi Zoldyck, the eldest brother of the Zoldyck family, even he now joins their ranks because Hisoka put him there. Hisoka put him there. Illumi states to the Phantom Troupe that he is there because, again, Hisoka put him there. And if they succeed in killing Hisoka, then Hisoka has automatically set a deposit into Illumi's account. Because Illumi and Hisoka's relationship, if you want to call it that, has been ups and downs, lefts and rights, all over the place. It's a fairly wonky relationship, but these two do have sort of maybe some kind of bond. And Illumi is now in the ranks of the Phantom Troupe. So now that we've had that quick little review of how this all began, where is Hisoka? Straight up. I have a few thoughts on where he could be within the Black Whale, which is why this video exists, duh. But I do want to throw this possibility out there. Maybe Hisoka is not on the ship at all. There is that chance to where Hisoka, he's biding his time and he's still waiting in the human world, or I should say the known human world, and he is playing the Phantom Troupe like a fiddle. Like it's all the part of the greater plan to take out the Phantom Troupe. Because when you think about it from the psychological aspect, if the Phantom Troupe are going to fight against Hisoka, and they're hell-bent in doing so, to where they're in this place where they could potentially steal a lot of money. If Hisoka is not on the ship and they realize that, then not only would they be extraordinarily pissed off that Hisoka was on the ship, but also it's the added on factor that they were on this ship. They could have stole so many things and they didn't. Now, this of course also apply when they have reached the new continent of the outskirts of the human world, because they'll still be searching for Hisoka even then and potentially still not find Hisoka. It would show you just how deep Hisoka is embedded in the Phantom's mind, mainly Chrollo. Oh yeah, Chrollo wants a piece of Hisoka, especially after that major declaration of, Phantom Troupe, you're on my list.
You, Kakarot, I choose you to be the first of my victims.
And I'm gonna make sure that all of you die. As the leader, he's not gonna sit by and let it happen, but it all could be a part of Hisoka's greater plan, if there is one. So that is a possibility, but again, I would say highly, highly unlikely. Now, in the ship itself, what are the options? What are the best places for Hisoka to be? Automatically, we would probably say Tier 1 and Tier 2, because Tier 1 and Tier 2 are the most secure of the floors. Tier 1 and Tier 2 are the homes of the majority of the Kaken soldiers, the V5, now the V6 politicians and higher-ups, the VVIP members of the ship, like the extraordinarily rich and the famous and those guys, as well as, of course, the royal family of Kaken themselves. Tier 1 and Tier 2 are the most secured floors of all of the floors. When it comes to a hiding spot, you would think that those two floors would be the best because of, again, A, the security, and B, right now, there is so much chaos, especially in Tier 1, where you have this succession war between the princes going on. Also, I forgot to mention too, you also have 150 plus hunters that are also on Tier 1 and Tier 2 that have their own missions that mainly tie to the Dark Continent and the outskirts of the human world, but that is another line of protection that Hisoka could use to his advantage if he's on one of those two decks of the Black Whale. And technically, Tier 1 is actually not on the Black Whale, it's above the Black Whale on its own cruise ship. So again, there are protection measures that are clearly in place when it comes to Tier 1 and Tier 2 that make those floors obvious choices for a hiding spot that Hisoka could use for the time being against the Phantom Troupe. We also have to know here that Hisoka is probably not like hiding in the vent somewhere. Hisoka has probably used, definitely not. Hisoka has probably used his bungee gum and his texture surprise, mainly his texture surprise, to change his appearance. And in chapter 371, Finks was telling one of the lesser mafia groups on Tier 5 to search out Tier 5 for anybody that was around the height of 190 centimeters, which is around 6 foot 2 inches. So Hisoka could probably change that too, because one of his feet is already made out of Nen. And I'm not too sure if he's going as far as to remove the other foot and make it out of Nen too, but he could do something like that. Like Hisoka's a savage like that. He could literally move his other foot for the sake of being able to alter his height at will. Like that, ooh. I mean, even with the 1 foot, he could probably work something in that regard as well when it comes to changing his height. His abilities now are a lot more tailored towards stealth and disguise, mainly disguise. Also remember that when he uses the texture surprise, the Nen aura is no longer there, which is why for years he could have the number 4 Phantom Troupe tattoo on his back and none other troop even noticed it for years. Now getting back to his location, aside from Tier 5, I don't think that Hisoka is on Tier 5. Tier 4, from the standpoint of size, is the biggest tier. So if Hisoka wanted to find a spot to hide and try and blend in with the crowd, there's a more likely chance to do it on Tier 4, because again, Tier 4 is the biggest deck among all the decks of the Black Whale. However, I think that Tier 3 would be a better choice, because Tier 4 and Tier 5 are run by mafia families, which I think would make things a bit more difficult if Hisoka was trying to disguise himself and embed himself in, let's say, a certain faction, because again, the mafias rule over Tier 4 and Tier 5, and arguably Tier 4 and Tier 5 are more secure than Tier 3. So from a security standpoint, Tier 3 is the weakest of all the tiers. But At the same time, Tier 3 is a location where a lot of politicians are, as well as the police. And not only that, but recently, because of the pseudo-martial law that has been imposed in Tier 3, we now have more Kaken troops coming down from the Tier 1 and Tier 2 to Tier 3 to regulate what's going on in Tier 3, as well as members of the Zodiac being located in Tier 3 as well, like Mizai and Dragon and Cheeto and so on and so forth. So Tier 3, in that sense, if Hisoka was to, let's say, disguise himself as a police officer or a Kaken troop, which he could easily do, and that I think would be more beneficial than, let's say, being a family man or something of the sort. Because it was alluded to previously that Hisoka could maybe hide himself among the family, but then Hisoka would have to go about manipulating the other members of the family, which would be kind of weird and actually a big liability, because those members of his fake family are more, let's say, susceptible to being interrogated by the Phantom Troupe or the other mafias who are searching for Hisoka. So I think ultimately, in the long run, Hisoka is best off going solo and embedding himself with a group of people like the police or like the troops, as opposed to try and disguise himself as like a regular family man. And because of the recent surge of troops to Tier 3, as well as the police already being established in Tier 3, and even though Mizai is aware that they are on the ship, the Phantom Troop probably don't want to get too involved with the troops or the police. It's probably a lot better for Hisoka to be embedded in some type of government position or legal position, like an officer, like someone that's like an aide or an attendant of a politician, like a member of the Kaken military, something of that sort. So I would say that Hisoka is probably definitely not on Tier 5 and Tier 4, and it's probably on either Tier 1, Tier 2, or Tier 3. And in all honesty, I'm leaning a lot more towards Tier 3 than Tier 1 or Tier 2. Because Tier 1 and Tier 2 are, I would say, very obvious choices. And in Hisoka's case, because he's a master of disguise at this point, it'd be more so hiding in plain sight, as opposed to rely on the mass amount of security that go down on Tier 2 and Tier 1. From the Phantom Troop's perspective, it makes a lot more sense if they go up to Tier 2 and Tier 1 to find Hisoka. However, Tier 3, I would say, is Hisoka's best bet if he wants to be undiscovered for a longer period of time. And Illumi in the latest chapter did say that he had business on Tier 3. Maybe he's gotten a whiff. Maybe he's gotten a whiff wafting the scent of Hisoka. Because Illumi and Hisoka, you could make the argument that their relationship is stronger than that of the Phantom Troops and Hisoka's relationship, because that was purely fake. Whereas with Hisoka and Illumi, they could be freaks together. So among all the cats there, Illumi probably knows best. But right now he can't act on that whiff because of the recent pseudo-martial law. That's what I'm thinking. So if Hisoka does emerge in the, let's say, the next batch of 10 chapters of Hunter x Hunter, I wouldn't be that much surprised. Hisoka, again, they're searching for him, and folks think that Hisoka's position is stagnant. I don't think so. I think it's going to be very fluid. Hisoka's going to be moving up and down. He's going to be moving constantly. And if he's hunting down the Phantom Troop, he's going to want that, definitely. But again, right now, as of chapter 380, Hisoka's probably on deck 3. And that's what I'm thinking. So, let me know where you guys stand right now with Hisoka's position on the Black Whale. Of course, more Hunter x Hunter on the way, but be sure to rate the video. It is not that hard to do, especially when I know that you all have a device called Zmausu. You use Zmausu to click, rate the video, to click, subscribe, to click on that bell to join the squad, and of course, comment in the comment section down below. Peace, and have a nice goddamn day.